So a New Jersey magazine ban case is seeking review from the Supreme Court, which would have major implications for the California magazine ban case, Duncan v. Bonta. So let's talk about this. But real quick before we jump into this video, if you think that magazine capacity restrictions violates your Second Amendment rights, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe. I also want to thank Safe Life Defense for supporting this channel. They have some of the best flexible body armor, soft body armor out on the market. I actually have one of their soft body armors sitting in my vehicle. Right now, they're actually going to have a 4th of July sale, so everything is going to be discounted pretty much. And if you use the code ARMSCHOLAR, you will get an additional 10% off, and I'll put a link to them down in the detail section. So the case we're going to be talking about in this video is Association of New Jersey Rifle and Pistol Clubs v. Grewal. This is a challenge to New Jersey's ban on so-called large capacity magazines, and this is arising out of a Third Circuit challenge as well. And why we're going to talk about this is because this case is now up for potential cert to the Supreme Court, and if the Supreme Court takes up this case, it's going to have major implications on the California case, Duncan v. Bonta, and California's ban on so-called large capacity magazines. So here's some brief background on this case, and I'm just going to refer to it as ANJ because that's a little bit easier. And so ANJ is arising out of a New Jersey law that was passed back in 2018. New Jersey in 2018 passed Assembly Bill 2761, which was essentially similar to California's ban on so-called large capacity magazines, where individuals could not buy, possess, import, or even retrospectively possess magazines that hold more than 10 rounds. This New Jersey law required that residents in New Jersey must permanently modify those magazines that maybe held more than 10 rounds to only then hold 10 rounds, either to also destroy them or to get rid of them as well. So you're already hearing how similar this is to the California case, Duncan v. Bonta, because in California, a lot of the very same similar things happened. The case was originally heard in a district court in New Jersey, who pretty much did not find in favor of the Second Amendment and did not grant a preliminary injunction or permanent injunction, and pretty much found that this law in New Jersey did not violate core Second Amendment rights and actually used a two-step tiered scrutiny, which the Ninth Circuit uses as well, and which we've talked about quite a bit in Duncan v. Bonta, and found that this law in New Jersey passed intermediate scrutiny and just was simply not a violation of core Second Amendment rights. Well, ANJ then appealed that decision up to the Third Circuit, and a panel again decided that they were going to use two-step tiered scrutiny and found that this law in New Jersey was not a violation of core Second Amendment rights and therefore was constitutional. This case was then remanded back down to the district court. The district court then granted a motion for summary judgment in favor of the state of New Jersey. That granting of the motion for summary judgment was then appealed back up to the Third Circuit, and again, the plaintiffs in this case argued that the decision of the prior Third Circuit panel was just simply wrong, that they used the wrong type of analysis. It was just inherently flawed. That panel did not rule in favor of plaintiffs again. And then also plaintiffs sought an en banc review from the Third Circuit, but the Third Circuit denied that en banc review, and it was an 8-6 vote split, so they did not grant an en banc review. Well, now the plaintiffs has sought a writ of certiorari up to the Supreme Court for the Supreme Court to review this issue. And that petition for a writ of certiorari was sent up to the Supreme Court on April 26th of 2021, and as of right now, the response is due from the state of New Jersey as of July 12th of 2021. So let's take a look at the writ of certiorari that went up to the Supreme Court and the questions that were presented for the Supreme Court to review. And so the writ of certiorari states, under recent amendments to New Jersey's law, an ordinary law-abiding citizen is prohibited from possessing a firearm magazine capable of holding more than 10 rounds of ammunition, even though such magazines are widely owned and come standard issued for handguns and long guns typically owned for self-defense. New Jersey's new law does not stop at banning the purchase of such magazines prospectively. It applies retrospectively to treat any non-compliant magazine as contraband, no matter how long, lawfully, or safely it has been possessed. The law is thus unconstitutional twice over. This court in District of Columbia v. Heller held that the Second Amendment protects arms that are typically possessed by law-abiding citizens for lawful purposes, which coincidentally describes the magazines here to a T, and dispossessing citizens of lawfully acquired property without just compensation affects an impermissible physical taking. A divided panel of the Third Circuit nevertheless upheld the law in opinions that generated multiple dissents and escaped en banc review by a narrow 8-6 vote. And then the writ of certiorari goes on to actually have the questions that are presented to the Supreme Court. And there are two of them, and this is what they are. Whether a blanket retrospective and confiscatory law prohibiting ordinary law-abiding citizens from possessing magazines in common use violates the Second Amendment. And two, whether a law dispossessing citizens without compensation of property that was lawfully acquired and long possessed without incident violates the takings clause. So those are the two questions that are being presented to the Supreme Court in this case. Now, for those of you who've watched a lot of my videos and have stayed in tune with the Duncan v. Bonta case, the California magazine ban case, when I was reading through this, you probably saw that there are a ton of parallels in this California Duncan v. Bonta case and this ANJ case. First, both of these cases deal with state magazine capacity restrictions, pretty much outlawing any magazine that holds more than 10 rounds. And then these both also deal with a confiscation and a retrospective confiscation. The state of California did grandfather in some magazines and then amended their law in SB 61 and also made those grandfather magazines outlawed as well in California Penal Code 32310. And so it had a retrospective ban and retrospective confiscation. In New Jersey, in this case, is very similar. It deals with a retrospective ban on magazines and also deals with a takings of those magazines as well. Both of these laws also have similar requirements for their residents, essentially stating that those residents must permanently affix those prior possessed magazines to only hold 10 rounds. They must destroy them or turn them over. So they both kind of have those requirements. And also both of these cases are in a circuit court that leans heavily on the two-step process and typically uses intermediate scrutiny to actually uphold what the state is trying to do in violating Second Amendment rights. Now, where these two cases deviate has to do with the procedure in the lower courts. In the Duncan v. Bonta case, the Southern District of California and the saint himself, Roger T. Benitez, found that the state of California's ban on so-called large capacity magazines was indeed unconstitutional. That was then appealed up to the Ninth Circuit, and a three-judge panel in the Ninth Circuit actually once again found that what the state of California was doing was unconstitutional. So in the Duncan case, you had both the district court and the three-judge panel in the circuit find that what the state of California was doing was unconstitutional. This is different from the New Jersey case where both the district court and the circuit court upheld the state of New Jersey's ban on so-called large capacity magazines. So procedurally, the Duncan v. Bonta case is a little bit more favorable to two-way rights, where the New Jersey case has a little bit more negative, like lower court procedure, and there's not as much like authority and references from the courts for the Supreme Court to lean on, but there were some dissents that the Supreme Court, if they took it up, they could lean on some of that language in the dissents. So why is this case of importance? Well, if the Supreme Court took up this case, which deals with magazine capacity restrictions, and ruled in the favor of the Second Amendment and actually struck down these types of state laws, that would affect this Duncan v. Bonta case as well and California's ban on so-called large capacity magazines. A Supreme Court decision has huge implications and trickles down to all the circuit courts and trickles down to all the states. So this is a case we're definitely going to be keeping our eyes on because the Supreme Court has not taken up a ton of two-way cases. We don't have a lot of Supreme Court precedent and rulings on the two-way issues like this, especially with magazines and other types of firearms. And so if the Supreme Court took this up, that would have huge implications. And even more so, recently the Supreme Court took up the Corlett case, which deals with the New York State CCW permitting system. So they've taken up a recent two-way case, and so maybe it's likely that they will take up this issue as well. So this is just a case I want to put on your guys' radar because not a lot of people are talking about it. Not a lot of people are talking about how it parallels with the Duncan v. Bonta case and California's magazine capacity restrictions as well, and that it could have huge implications in the state of California and nationwide if the Supreme Court were to take up this issue. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and comment down below and I'll try to answer the best of my ability. Also, if you like this video and like support the channel, one of the best ways to do that is to like, comment, subscribe, and make sure that notification bell because all those things help to fuel the algorithm. Even if you just want to leave a comment that says, hey, I'm just commenting to fuel the algorithm, all that stuff helps this video, helps to signal to YouTube that people are seeing value in this video and that they should push it out to more individuals who want to hear this type of two-way news. So as always, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And never forget, this nation was built by armed scholars. This nation will be maintained by armed scholars.